Hi there. Well, welcome. It's Wednesday, April 11th, and it is good to be with you again. Hope you're all still enjoying the celebration of Easter. And I guess I want to just start off the day with one thought, and that is you've all heard the old saying, be careful what you wish for. Well, in this case, I think the Israelites are going to get exactly what they wished for. They wanted a king, and God is going to give them one. And as Heather had reminded us yesterday, they're going to get a king just like everyone else has. And we know from our reading today that the first king is going to be Saul. We are going to transition from the period of judges into the monarchies. And so this whole process of Samuel finding the first king and choosing Saul as God had led him happens, and Saul is anointed as this king, and Samuel brings the people together to tell them that this is what God is choosing to do. And what I find really interesting in this today is that then all of a sudden, next thing you know, Saul is back working on the family farm. It just didn't seem to me like, well, shouldn't the king go to a castle? Shouldn't he sit on a throne at that point? But we're still in that transition period. I don't think at this point Saul really knows exactly how this is all going to play out. He's probably trying to figure things out. But it's kind of interesting that, yeah, he's a king, but what does that look like? And we're soon going to find out. Then we have this account of Nahash of the Ammonites goes to Jabesh Gilead and says, here's how it's going to happen. You either play ball by my rules or else. And of course they're thinking, well, we may have to do that, but let's put the word out to all of our brethren, see if they'll come to our aid, and we'll need 7 days to do that. Clearly Nahash didn't think anyone was going to respond, so he waits them out for 7 days. Now, we know Saul ultimately responds. I'm curious as to maybe what other tribes might have responded, if any. Given how fragmented the Israelite community is at this point, with each kind of doing their own thing and going their own way, my guess is that it could very well have been that none of them were going to respond. Nonetheless, Saul hears the messengers, and I think those words in verse 6 of chapter 11 are critical, where it says, when Saul heard their words, the Spirit of God came upon him in power, and he burned with anger. Saul wasn't clear what he was going to do up to that point, but he heard the messengers, and all of a sudden God led him to respond. And we know then that he responds with victory over the Ammonites, and two significant things come out of this. Number one, at that point, the people really acclaim Saul as their king. And number two, he leads them in victory over an enemy. So now we begin to see how leadership has to be earned, and ultimately Saul and the people see once again that it is by God's hand that they are victorious. And again, another reminder for them. So nonetheless, an interesting account today, and I think it's one of those things where it's different, but it's the same. We go from judge to king. We now are kind of transitioning from Samuel to Saul, but the people continue to sin. And even though in the midst of their sin they acknowledge it, God continues that relationship with them, and that's going to happen in the monarchy as well. And Samuel has changed his roles, but he's not retiring. And as he reminds the people, he will still be there to counsel and offer a guidance to the people as well as to the king. And that will be God's guidance. And I think that's important because ultimately it will be up to them to choose to obey. Well, I think for us today, kind of to sum that up, the Word of God and His counsel by His Spirit is still there for us as well. And really it comes down to that same question for us. Will we obey? Will we be obedient to God's call on our lives? I pray that we will, and I pray you have a blessed day as well. We'll talk to you again soon.